All right, well, hello everybody once again, and this is Durf, and I'm joined with Mick, and we are, say hello Mick.
Hello.
And we're sitting outside on a warm Chicago summer night, and we're sitting with Josh from Royal Thunder. And Josh, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us tonight.
Yeah, man, thanks for coming out.
So I guess first things first, how's the, you guys are out on tour supporting your sophomore LP, right, Crooked Doors?
Absolutely.
And how's that tour been going so far?
It's been amazing, man. Been meeting new people, been having a great time playing. It's been awesome. It's always great to get out of the house and see the country, meet new people, play.
Have the crowds been I'm assuming you've been playing more recent stuff on the set. Have the crowds been responding well to that? Is it kind of a mixed bag? They're not quite as familiar yet, or what's been the response so far?
It's been really great. We've had wonderful response every night. We try to throw in some of the older stuff in there too. You know, we've been playing some stuff off the EP, so you know, try to put a little bit of stuff for everybody.
So I was not familiar with the EP. Crooked Doors was my introduction to you guys, and the thing that I think strikes me the most when I listen to it, you really can't pigeonhole your guys' music. You can't. It doesn't. You know, it's not metal. It's not sludge. It's not hard rock. And it seems like a very conscious choice you guys make to kind of bring in all these influences. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, I think it's just that I've listened to so much music growing up. You know, I feel very fortunate that I was born 1979, grew up in the 80s and 90s, and, you know, the span of music and creativity just between the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you know, was huge. You know, I feel thankful that I grew up in that time where there was such a creative push in music, you know. So I think that has a lot to do with it. I like a lot of different types of music, and you know, I like to play stuff that's similar to maybe what I'd like to listen to. You know, maybe that's why there's such a huge. You hear so many different influences. You know,
are there perhaps primary? Oh, got some. Go ahead.
Yeah, we can pause.
No, it's fine. Go ahead. Yeah.
Could you speaking about all those different time periods of music? Are there primary bands perhaps that had the most profound influence on you? Do you think that comes through the most, or?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I grew up I remember. I had to think about this recently. I remember being a kid listening to the Thriller album, the Michael Jackson, looking we had the vinyl. And just looking at it and listening to it, and so that, you know, that was obviously a huge influence, that pop influence, and then, you know, growing up after that, you know, hearing Metallica and all that. But the thing that really got me was Nirvana. I mean, that was just I was 11, 12 years old, and I heard Nevermind, and it was just game over.
You're the first person I've ever heard mention that. Can you? Who is Nirvana?
They're a band that formed from Nickelback. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, it all adds up.
No, that's huge. And I mean, Mick and I are both children of the late '80s, so even, you know, obviously we grew up hearing Nirvana on rock radio, but it wasn't, you know, that kind of visceral, this is something new that's changing the game. So that's really kind of cool that you got to experience that.
Yeah, it was powerful, man. I mean, I think that, you know, I say this a lot, but I think that there's something that happened when the internet hit. You know, I mean, there's a loss of, you know, people holding tangible music. And I think partly that's why vinyl, I think that there is a resurgence in vinyl, because I think people in general and kids growing up do long for something special and something tangible. But, you know, I think that after the 90s, you know, kids would have 5,000 albums on their computer and not know what to listen to. So music kind of I think took a back seat to whatever else, porn or whatever else the internet had to offer, or
But it's a lot easier to go through at the end of every year and look at Rolling Stone or Pitchfork or blogs, top 10 lists, download all the albums, and then you have them all, as opposed to like when Thriller came out or when Nevermind came out, and it was kids in school like, hey, I picked up this album, you have to listen to this. It's I read a blog post the other day about people blogging like, oh, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard, and then a month later they're not even talking about it. It's like, well,
it's like the next greatest thing you ever heard has come out.
Think about this growing up, like I would go into Turtles Music and buy a tape, and back then you put it in, you listened to it all the way through. Yeah. You didn't have a button to hit the next track. If you didn't like it, you listen to it again. And then, a lot of times you would start to see where the artist was coming from, and that's what was so special about it, is that it wasn't a matter of like, a lot of bands weren't like, all right, let's immediately just get to the hook. Like, let's get there as fast as we can. It was more of an artistic thing, and that's why you enjoyed it, is because you listened to it and you saw, you would look at the artwork and you would kind of get into that world and realize where the artist was coming from. Yeah. And that's just, I think, a loss of today, and a lot of what kids growing up have not experienced yet.
I feel like a lot of times we sit down with artists that come through and we talk, and it seems like this album versus single mentality is a recurring theme. But it really seems like heavier music, and hard rock and metal especially, still, because they're not getting that radio play, they're not getting all that airplay, there's still that benefit to crafting a whole album. So do you think that's part of the reason that even though you're playing the music you like to play, obviously it seems like crafting a whole album instead of just a collection of songs is also something that appeals to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been important for me to have the whole spectrum, from beginning to end. Even if when I'm in the studio, I don't even know what that looks like, but constructing something that's going to be cohesive yet diverse. But I think that once again, I think that the influences of just a time of music that was, and I do like pop stuff. I do like stuff like that. But I grew up in a time where it wasn't a matter. It was more artistically charged, and there's a lot of creativity going on.
Now that's a good segue, because we were talking earlier about how, kind of specifically, since we're kind of pinned to the metal world, there's kind of been this resurgence of these bands that are kind of going for that older late 70s kind of stoner, early stoner Black Sabbath kind of sound, and you guys again somewhat fit that, though not completely. But what do you think you guys do that kind of helps you stand out a little bit from that pack?
I mean, well, for one, I think that when we go in the band room, it's not like, well, let's make sure we sound like Black Sabbath. Let's go for, the exact tempos. Let's go for the exact sound. So that's definitely, I think that, there's people that do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. I love Black Sabbath, and there's some bands that I love that sound like Black Sabbath, but we definitely don't go in there and go, let's write a song that sounds like Black Sabbath, or let's sound like a 70s band. So that's definitely, I think, why.
So to that end of not, planning out, saying not planning out sounds like you guys just go in there and make shit up on the fly. But, we talked about how diverse Royal Thunder's style is. Is there, anything that would be off limits for you guys, or if it fit a song, you would do it?
No, I mean, if it fit a song, I would do it. I think that there's definitely... everything that we've done has been a natural evolution. I think that every album's different from the last. I think the next album we'll do will be different from Crooked Doors. So, Yeah, I mean, I'm open to doing anything, man. You know, as long as it fits the song and sounds right, you know, I'm wide open.
Very cool. And obviously you guys are still right in the middle of touring behind Crooked Doors, so I mean, have you guys even started talking about the next album, or are you kind of waiting and seeing?
No, and a lot of our inspiration, like Crooked Doors, came from traveling and playing, you know. We definitely don't try to force or do anything that, you know, when it comes in time, you know. Like I said, a lot of living and a lot of traveling and meeting people and playing live, man, that's where we come alive, and that's where we get comfortable as musicians and grow as musicians, you know. Being on stage and getting so comfortable with those songs, like, all right, let's do something, you know, you start doing stuff that's different with it every night. I mean, there's, you know, some people might not like it, but like there's things on the songs that we're playing from Crooked Doors, immediately it's like we're not doing the same stuff that we're doing on the record. You know, different melodies, different, but I think, and even like, you know, Sleeping Witch and the songs from CVI, and even we're doing Mouth of Fire from the EP, it's completely different than it was on the album, but, you know, I think it's fun, and it breathes new life into the song, so, but we're excited to get out and play and get new inspiration for the new album, for sure.
So you're definitely not one of the bands that like has to like feels the need that they have to write something like every day, like for a certain. It's kind of like natural. If it comes, it comes, kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely, man. There's times I won't write a single thing for like 6 months. I won't even write a single riff or anything. So it just comes when it comes, for sure.
Very cool. Mick, you got?
Are there any, I mean, you guys are still obviously on this tour. Are there other tour plans in the future for you guys or anything? Or is this taking you out for a little while?
No, I think we're home July 3rd. But then I think we have some European plans for the fall. Okay. And maybe even a tour coming up in November, but we're waiting to see on that. So very cool.
Well, I guess we always like to end off with kind of more fun questions. I know this is kind of a generic one that we do ask quite a bit, but it seems it would be a more interesting answer this time around, since you do like listen to so many different kinds of bands. What would be like a dream lineup for Royal Thunder?
Dream lineup.
Like if you could play, like if it doesn't matter if you're headlining or you're part of the bill, like who are like 3 or 4 bands that you would love to share the stage with?
We talk about it all the time. The Cult, for sure.
Okay.
Love the Cult. Huge fan. Queens of Stone Age. Love Queens of Stone Age. Who else? Led Zeppelin, Nirvana.
Yeah, right.
I mean, Foo Fighters. Shit. What's some other good ones? The National. I love the National. Band of Horses. Love Band of Horses. I'm trying to think of any other. I just listen to so much stuff, man. Yeah, but I think those would be great tours.
Well, awesome. I actually have another. It follows up to that kind of. So you mentioned growing up listening to Thriller and Nevermind. We've talked about those, but anybody who listens to this knows what those albums are. So, you know, Josh, you listen to a lot of music. So, from the last 5 or so years, what is the Thriller, the Nevermind, in your eyes?
I'll tell you what, I got a funny story about that. I'd say about, let's say 5 to 7 years back.
The question was 5 years.
5 years.
Respect the limits.
All right, 15 years. Okay. No, I'm gonna keep taking it back further. No, I had a car that had a tape deck in it, and somebody had left all these tapes, and so I put Led Zeppelin 4 in. And I grew up, and all those songs played on the rock radio, all the Led Zeppelin. I just did not pay attention to it. So I played that tape till it just pretty much died, and just realizing and listening to Led Zeppelin. I think hands down they're the best. I think the best band ever, and some of the best rock albums of all time, hands down. And for me, it was a band that was overlooked because it was in a weird time era. Like I said, they always played the hits on like rock radio when I was growing up, but it just was overlooked. So we did a tour with Baroness, and this was September, maybe 2 years ago, maybe 3. And we played Electric Ballroom, and I think that was in London or Manchester, I don't know, it's somewhere around there. And we get done playing, I'm in the VIP area, and one of the PR girls that works for us in Europe was like, "What'd you do if I told you Jimmy Page was behind you right now?" I was like, "Shut the fuck up." And I did a double take, and I was like, "Holy crap, it's Jimmy Page." So I had to go talk to him. So I went up and talked to him and just told him I thought he made some of the best records ever, and told him that I didn't even really get into this music until recently. And after that, we just talked about gear, and it was awesome, man. It was really... But, even to this day, I don't even listen to Led Zeppelin that much because it's so special to me. I'm like, I found something that I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I don't want to over-listen to it. It's special, I think. But, yeah.
Awesome, man. No, that's, I would say that definitely counts. Yeah. So, we got some food here, so we're going to give you some time, let you eat. But, again, this has been Durf and Mick. And we've been talking with Josh from Royal Thunder. Josh, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, guys. Rock and roll.